We believe here that the people who are most responsible for pollution should feel the most accountability to being a part of the leaders in solving for the problems that they help to create. And I'm not placing blame. We had to have an industrial boom in this country in order for us to be where we are now as the United States. But we also want to make sure that we're now getting to a future where it's sustainable for our kids, where we actually have the kind of life that we envisioned. And so California has created a program in 2006 that helped to make sure that big polluters are accountable for the poison they put into the air. Makes sense, as I said. I mean, you and I are responsible for the trash we put on the streets. We put them in the little litter box, right? And so we want to make sure that big polluters are also cleaning up their act. And if they can't do so fast enough, then they have to pay into a fund. So California created this, our carbon pricing program in 2006. A group of us came together afterwards, led by a deputy director at the California Environmental Protection Agency. It's Ms. Shankar Prasad, Dr. Shankar Prasad, who's an incredible genius. And he said, what if we made sure that that big fund didn't just become a slush fund for people who had the most power or the most political voice? What if we actually came together from all walks of California to fight for our very communities, those who otherwise wouldn't be at the table? So with his leadership, we came together and created a team. It's called the Senate Bill 535 team. But what it did was pretty incredible. Without any funding, 5 of our organizations came together. It was the Coalition for Clean Air, the Natural Resources Defense Council, NAACP, the Green Lining Institute, and the Asian Pacific Environmental Network. It's important to know those names because of how diverse it really was, that coalition. And we came together to fight to make sure that 35% now is allocated just specifically for the communities most impoverished and most polluted. And we found those communities because we worked with California's team of scientists to identify where the worst groundwater contamination was, where the communities were that was the most proximate to busy roads and highways, where were the communities that had the most soot, particulate matter exposure, and then we overlaid that with other economic factors. We looked at what are the communities with the highest rent burden, the highest dropout rates, the highest levels of infant mortality, and a number of other things that were woven in together. And those census tracts that performed the worst, that had the worst scores, were the ones that had the set-aside amount of 35%, that they get to have the programs benefiting them or in their communities itself. Now, that has led to $2 billion thus far that has been invested in those communities, and it's the biggest fund in history. The important thing here is after our coalition came together, which was led by the 5 organizations I named, but created a big tent that allowed for 200 plus organizations, from labor unions to healthcare organizations to workforce development to private companies. We all came together to say this set-aside money is right, it's morally right, and it's actually politically and economically the right thing to do. We then, after we passed a law, it took us 4 years, stepped back and said, now that we have won, where should the money go? And the key part here is we didn't say we think that the money should go to our pet projects or our kind of, most passionate issue. We went back to the very communities that had already paid for the pollution with their lives, their health, their lungs, and asked them what were the things that they wanted the money to be spent on. We took a year, we did town hall meetings, conference calls, church meetings, workshops across the state, and we asked them what were the programs that were hiring from your community, that was the most impactful, that was the most needed by you and your family, that were the ones that spoke your language, that the ones that you felt most able to access, and what were the priorities within that. Everything that they told us they wanted to see, we got fully funded at the maximum level that these programs could actually be funded. And every year we go back and make sure that we are right-sizing these programs that are administered by the state and then goes down to the sub-agencies and goes down to the local communities. And so those programs included funding for affordable housing by transit-oriented development. It included thousands of free solar panels, the biggest funding yet for free solar. It included free bus passes for seniors and students, so we're incentivizing public transportation. But we also wanted to incentivize moving off of gas guzzlers and gas combustion vehicles into electric vehicles. So we funded a significant amount of fuel cell buses, subsidies and support for electric vehicles that would benefit low-income communities who otherwise couldn't get into a clean car. We got into energy efficiency programs. One of the biggest investment in urban forestry, not only in the state of California, but nationally, was through this program. One of the women who benefited from the free solar program funds that we created was named Maria Zavala. She lives in Fresno. She heard about the program and applied. And when she finally got approved, we interviewed her and said, you know, we were looking at the solar installations and asking her questions. And she had told us, you know, her husband had just passed recently because of a pollution-related illness. And her son was in and out of trying to figure out what to do with his life. And she was so excited about these free solar panels. We kept in touch with her. We found out that after they were installed, her energy bill dropped from $200 on average a month to $1.50 overnight. So just about the cost of a soda. And not only was she saving $200 and now being able to buy healthier foods and vegetables, maybe buy new shoes and buy new clothing, right? Or invest in the local economy. But that's also now clean energy in her community. The refinery is pumping out a little less dirty energy and dirty air to that neighborhood community. It created a job for the person installing the solar. It included a contract for the company that got that to install, not only for Maria's house, but also for the community. So it's been able to have a number of ripple effects.